Hello and good day. It's grade 7 natural science, and we are on life and living and human reproductive system. We have looked at puberty, we have looked at male reproductive organs, we have looked at female reproductive organs, and today we are looking, or in this lesson, we are looking at fertilization, pregnancy, and birth. It says here, every new human life starts as a single egg cell, okay? And that is a zygote, if you can recall from our previous lesson, which is viable to bring forth life for only 8 to 10 hours. All egg cells have already formed inside the ovaries before a woman is born. So before a woman is even born, they have egg cells. An egg can remain there for many years before it is released. Now let's look at definition of fertilization. They say fertilization takes place when cell nucleus of a sperm cell fuses with the cell nucleus of an egg cell, and the fertilized cell is called a zygote. Okay, we've learned that in our previous lesson. Now let's look at the process of fertilization. The process of fertilization is as follows. Fertilization takes place inside the female reproductive system. It happens inside the female reproductive system. After the sperm is deposited into the vagina, it moves up into the uterus. The sperm moves up to the fallopian tubes. Fertilization usually takes place in the upper part of the fallopian tubes. Okay, you remember the fallopian tubes? We saw them in the diagram. And they say 200 to 400 million sperm are deposited into the vagina at once. 200 to 400 million sperms are deposited into the vagina at once. It is only the sperm that reaches the egg cell first that will fertilize it to form a zygote. So which means when the sperm gets into the female reproductive organs, they compete, they run, because the first one will be the one that will fertilize the egg cell to form a zygote. A special layer forms around the zygote immediately after fertilization to prevent the other sperm from entering the egg cell. Oh, this is interesting. So now the first sperm cell reaches the egg cell, and it fertilizes it and form a zygote. And immediately there's a protective layer, a special layer around the zygote. That layer will prevent any other sperm from entering the egg cell. The sperm is much smaller than the ovum, which is the egg cell. And here we see the microscopic photos of sperm moving towards an ovum. Okay, so you see these small millions. Okay, they are the sperms. Okay, and they say the diagram of a female reproductive system. Oh, no. Sorry. I wanted to be here. So the sperms, you see, they are going to the ovum, which is on the fallopian tubes. And you can see million of sperms. So they say that at once, so many sperms, they can be released, 200 to 400 million. So they all compete to go to the egg. And they say here we have the diagram of female reproductive system to indicate where fertilization and implantation takes place. We will learn more about implantation. Okay, don't worry. Okay, so let's start. Where do we start? I think we start from this side. We have the egg here. Am I right? And we have egg that is fertilized by the sperm, and we have the eggs as well. They're not giving an explanation what happens here. embryo implants on the uterus. Okay, so there are no further explanation on this one. Okay, but this is the fallopian tube. Okay, this is where fertilization takes place. Okay, now let's look at the implantation and pregnancy. The zygote starts to divide immediately after fertilization. Oh, okay. This is the process now. It's fertilization and the zygote, you see, it divides. While it moves down the fallopian tubes towards the uterus, the cells divide repeatedly. It looks like a small hollow ball of cells by the time it reaches the uterus. So fertilized, it divides, it divides. You see now it's small balls. Okay, when the small embryo reaches the uterus, it reaches the wall of the uterus, which is rich in blood vessels. The embryo is now implanted. Okay, so the embryo now is implanted. This happens on the 6th or the 7th day after fertilization. After 2 months of development, all the organs of the embryo have developed. It is now called a fetus. Okay, so fertilization happens, and now the zygote divides, and it goes, they say, for about 6 to 7 days. And this comes to the walls of the, they say it comes to the uterus wall, okay, which is rich in blood vessels. Okay, and after 2 months of they say this, once it gets to the walls, the embryo is now implanted, which we can say that now somebody is pregnant. This happens on the 6 or 7 days after fertilization. After 2 months of development, all the organs of the embryo have developed. Okay, it is now called a fetus. It is a fetus because now all organs have developed. Okay, interesting, eh? So we said that after 6 or 7 days of fertilization, the embryo is fully developed to a fetus, and all the organs are well developed. The heart and the blood vessels are the first organs that developed. So the heart and blood vessels, they develop first. Okay, are the first organs that develop, so oxygen and nutrients can be supplied to the embryo as soon as possible. So the embryo must get nutrients, and that happens through the heart and the blood vessels. Okay, so so that the embryo can get oxygen and nutrients. The developing embryo is surrounded by a sac filled with amniotic fluid. Okay, amniotic fluid. The sac is called the amnion, and the amnion, what it does, it absorbs the shock and protects the small fetus from dehydration, injuries, and temperature changes. Below are the few diagrams to illustrate these events to you. The embryo that reaches the uterus, okay, reaches the uterus wall. A fetus 10 weeks old inside the amnion, okay, which absorb the shock and protect the small fetus. Okay, so around it's the amnion, amniotic with amniotic fluid. The age and size is not to scale of the developing fetus. So we see first here, just after a fertilization, after the zygote, it's the zygote divides and form the small sort of a balls, and this comes to the walls of uterus, and a embryo is formed. You see your embryo developing in weeks. Okay, in weeks up until 40 weeks, where the baby is fully developed. Okay, however, from the very first they say at about 7 days here, the embryo is fully developed with all the organs. Okay, and the organs that develop first is the heart and the blood vessels to supply oxygen and nutrients to the embryo. Now, let's look at the preparation of the uterus wall where the embryo sits. As soon as a girl reaches puberty, somewhere between the ages 10 and 17, her monthly menstrual cycle starts. Okay? The hormones that are secreted in a 28-day cycle prepare the woman's body for a possible pregnancy. So every day a woman has got, or a young girl has their cycle, it's the preparation for possible pregnancy. This involves thickening of the blood layer on the inside of the uterus. That is where the embryo must attach. Okay. Various hormones play a part in the preparation for pregnancy. The varying hormone levels cause a wide range of changes that are sometimes uncomfortable for a girl. For example, moodiness, sensitive breast, water retention, eating disorders, and sleep disturbances. Halfway through the cycle, the release of a single egg from one of the ovaries takes place. This is ovulation, which is the release of the egg. The cycle, which usually lasts 28 days, ends when the layer of blood tears, okay, loose and is excreted through the vagina. Okay, so the cycle, when you see a young girl, or when a young girl is, or a woman is in menstruation periods, it means that the layer of blood have teared loose and it's now getting excreted through the vagina. This is called menstruation. This happens when the ovum is not fertilized. So when you see you are menstruating, or a girl is menstruating, you know that their egg is not fertilized, so they are not pregnant. Menstruation is accompanied by bleeding and it lasts 3 to 7 days. So it's a good thing to see menstruation, because it means that you know that you are not having a fertilized egg. And for a girl to have a fertilized egg, a male sperm must fuse with the female ovum, which is the egg cell. Okay, and that happens through the insertion of the male sex organ, which is the penis, into the vagina of the woman. Okay, a girl can use protective sanitary towels, tampons, or a reusable menstrual cup to absorb the flow of the blood during menstruation. If the ovum is fertilized and the embryo implants in the blood lining of the uterus, menstruation will not take place. Okay. So if the ovum is fertilized, menstruation will not take place. The absence of menstruation or bleeding is therefore usually the first indication of pregnancy. Let's look at the development of the placenta. If the ovum is fertilized, the embryo is implanted in the blood lining of the uterus wall. This place where the implantation takes place is now called the placenta. Okay, so when now this embryo, the fertilized embryo, comes and stay in the uterus wall, we call that implantation place the placenta. At the placenta, the mother's blood and the baby's blood are in very close contact with each other. However, the mother's blood and the baby's blood never mix. They are in close contact, but they never mix. Through the process of diffusion, oxygen and nutrients move from the mother's bloodstream to the baby's bloodstream. Let's read this again. Through the process of diffusion, oxygen and nutrients move from the mother's bloodstream to the baby's bloodstream. Only the nutrients move and oxygen. Okay, they said that the blood never mix. Waste products like carbon dioxide move from the baby's blood to the mother's bloodstream, so she can exhale it through her lungs. Okay, so the carbon dioxide from the body, it moves from the baby's blood to the mother's bloodstream so that she can exhale it. However, oxygen and nutrients move from the mother's bloodstream to the baby's bloodstream. The veins and arteries that flow to and from the fetus and the connective tissue that occurs around it is called the umbilical cord. Let's read again. The veins and the arteries that flow to and from the fetus and the connective tissues that occurs around it, it is called the umbilical cord. Now we have the diagram to show the position of the placenta and the umbilical cord of the developing baby. And we see this place is the placenta. This is where the embryo come and the implantation takes place. Okay, that is the placenta. And now from the mother to the baby, the veins, and the veins from the baby to the mother, this is called the umbilical cord. So oxygen and nutrients, they travel through this to the baby, and from the baby, carbon dioxide travel this way out to the mother, and the mother through the lungs will breathe out the carbon dioxide. Very interesting process. Now let's look at the birth. A baby is usually born 40 weeks after fertilization. 40 weeks after fertilization. In the last weeks before birth, the baby turns so that the head rests downward in the hollow of the mother's pelvic bone. So you see the head is downwards. This is the pelvic bone, and here it will be the vaginal opening. Okay. Just before birth, a special hormone is secreted, which stimulates the mother's uterus wall to tighten. These tightening are called contractions. The amniotic sac tears and the amniotic fluid flows out of the vagina. The woman waters break. Okay, so it breaks because of the contraction of the uterus wall. Okay, when the uterus wall tightens, it breaks the amniotic sac. Okay, or it tears it. Once it tears it, remember the amniotic sac has got amniotic water, and then this amniotic fluid flows out of the vagina, and we say the woman's water breaks. The opening to the uterus, which is the cervix, gradually start to dilate. Okay, dilate means it grows bigger, or it's opening wider and wider, so it is big enough for the baby's head to fit through. This dilation is usually very painful. Okay, that is why when women they go to deliver the baby, we say they are having labor pains. Okay, this is the pain that is caused by dilation. The contractions become very strong, and eventually the baby is pushed out through the vagina. After the birth, the baby's umbilical cord is cut off. Okay, there are no nerves in the umbilical cord. Therefore, it does not hurt when the cord is cut. Okay, so the cord is not living, so the baby is not hurt and the mother will not be hurt. As soon as the umbilical cord is cut, the baby is expected to cry. Okay. This is an indication that the baby can breathe by itself. Remember, at the beginning, the baby breathes through the umbilical cord. It gets nutrients and oxygen from the mother. But now, when the umbilical cord is cut, it means the baby must breathe on itself. Okay. They say that this is an indication that the baby can breathe by itself. 10 to 20 minutes later, the placenta becomes loose from the uterus wall. It is excreted as the after birth. So 10 to 20 minutes after later after birth, the placenta, which is inside the woman, right, becomes loose from the uterus wall, and then is secreted as the afterbirth. Okay, if the baby cannot be born naturally through the vagina, you know that if the baby cannot born naturally, the woman will undergo the operation. The doctor will make a cut through the mother's skin and uterine wall to remove the baby. This is called the cesarean section. Okay, so when they operate a woman to deliver the baby, this process is called a cesarean section. And here we see a normal vaginal birth, and here we see a cesarean section, okay, where they cut the woman. Now, we know that a pregnancy must be planned and must happen at the right time, where both the mother and the father are in a place or in a position to take care of the baby. Otherwise, if that's not the case, a pregnancy must be prevented. So how do we prevent pregnancy? There are various contraceptives that can be used to prevent pregnancy. The available methods of contraception, contraception is the methods that are used to prevent pregnancy. Contraception is different methods that are used to prevent pregnancy. So what type of contraception we have? Oral contraceptive for women. So oral, it means through mouth. Okay, so we can get pills. Pills can be taken by women that prevent an egg cell from becoming fertilized during sexual intercourse. That's the first one. These pills are available free of charge from government clinics and hospitals. It can also be bought from pharmacies. Contraceptive pills do not prevent a person from contracting sexually transmitted diseases like HIV and AIDS. They only prevent a pregnancy or the egg from being fertilized. Contraceptive, we also have inject. This one are the oral one. The second one, we have contraceptive injection for women, where women can also go for a hormone injection every 2 or 3 months, which will prevent them from falling pregnant. These injections do not prevent a person from contracting sexually transmitted diseases like HIV and AIDS. They only prevent the egg from being fertilized. So we have oral contraceptive methods, and which are pills, and we have the injection contraceptive injection for women. Okay, that is the second method of a pregnancy prevention. Let's look at the other method. And the third pregnancy prevention method, just want to put this nicely. The third one is IUD, as you can see there, and IUD stand for intrauterine device. Intrauterine device. This is a small apparatus. They say a small apparatus can be placed into a woman's uterus, which is the womb, by a specifically trained health worker. This apparatus can prevent pregnancy for up to 5 years. Okay, this is the intrauterine device. This apparatus does not prevent a person from contracting sexually transmitted diseases like HIV/AIDS. And we also have emergency contraceptive. Emergency contraceptive can be used to prevent pregnancy in women who have had unprotected sex. If already you had unprotected sex, you can take these emergency contraceptives. Or for the women that were raped or subject or suspect that the contraceptive that was used during intercourse did not work properly. Emergency contraceptive pills can be used up to 72 hours, which means 3 days after unprotected sex, to terminate a possible unwanted pregnancy. Pills are available free of charge at government clinics and hospitals. It can also be bought from pharmacies without prescription. So, which means you don't need a doctor's letter after you have unprotected sex or a sexual intercourse. You can go to a pharmacy within 3 days and ask for these pills. These pills do not prevent a person from contracting sexually transmitted diseases like AIDS, okay, and HIV. And the fifth one is condoms. We have female and male condoms are only method which offers double protection against unwanted pregnancies and sexually transmitted diseases, including HIV/AIDS. Male condoms are available free of charge at government clinics and some public places. Condoms are also sold cheaply at most pharmacies and supermarkets. Female condoms are available for free of charge at certain clinics and are for sale at some uh, pharmacies. And the last prevention method is abstinence. Okay, the last prevention method is abstinence. This is when a person decides not to have sex at all. In this way, it is impossible to become pregnant or contract a sexually transmitted disease. This is the best of all because you don't have to deal with anything else. Okay, because even the contraceptives, they can fail somewhere somehow. But if you stick to abstinence until you are ready for the baby, then you will be safe. Okay, so there are 6 methods of prevention or contraceptive, and the first one is the oral one, which is the pills. The second one is the contraceptive injection. The third one is the IUD, intrauterine device. The next one, emergency contraceptive. Number 5 is condoms. Number 6, which is the best, is abstinence, especially for growing women or growing girls. Remember, as fantastic as planned pregnancy can be for parents, an unplanned pregnancy can be a big shock and disillusionment. An unplanned pregnancy can have far-reaching consequences in the lives of the girl, the boy, and of course also the baby. This is why it is safest to abstain, which is number 6, from having sex until one is ready and is in a position to have and care for a baby. When teenagers become sexually active too early, it can have serious emotional consequences. It is therefore important to make the right decision. One thoughtless moment can irrevocably change a person's life, which means there is no way irrevocably, it means you cannot change. So one mistake can change your life forever. Okay, so that is it. We've come to the end of our lesson in human reproduction, and I hope this will help you as well to take a life lesson. I will apologize for the quality of my video. It's not so good. I really apologize. If I have to redo it again, you let me know. Okay, thank you.